an original.
From Story Studio Network.
Well, here we go. It is Tuesday, March the 28th. Welcome in. If you're really behind, I'll just remind you it's 2023. How's that? Dave Trafford here. It's Now and Next for Story Studio Network. And just saying, as the weather takes a turn here in Toronto this morning, nice and sunny, so we're loving that. Was at the rink last night, came out of the arena, and it was daylight. So it's nice to have that. For all of you bitching about daylight saving time, shut up. It just puts a, spring in your step to be able to do that. But 'tis the season to be a sports fan, no question, as you look at what's going on. And, maybe the only thing that's not really on the agenda right now is football. But we've got golf is getting ready to go. We got the Masters around the corner. We got the NHL playoffs coming, the NBA playoffs coming. We got opening day for Major League Baseball, and which is probably, the most optimistic day for anybody playing baseball and Major League Baseball, certainly, just because everybody's tied for first when we get going there. So I thought let's dig in on some of that, and just kind of a nice step into spring, joined by our friend of the program and veteran sports broadcaster, Rod Black is here. How are you, pal?
David, great. I hate daylight savings time. Just kidding. Just kidding. I tell you what, I do like getting up in the morning and that sun blazing in, and I love that little extra hour. And yeah, pretty soon we'll be out there playing golf, coming up 18 as the sun is setting. And I still have snow in my backyard. I live north of Toronto, so I still have snow here. And we did have a snowfall yesterday. So at the same time, as much as I am very excited about spring and summer, until the snow leaves, I can't get really that overly excited yet. But I will be soon, and I can't wait.
I hear you. Getting out and enjoying the garden or whatever it is you might be able to do. Listen, before we get to the fun and the games of the games, I wanted your take on the announcement from Hockey Canada. I guess it came last night, indicating that all of the players from the 2018 World Junior roster will be excluded from any international play until their investigation is complete as to what happened in the wake of that gathering in London, where a young woman was paid off. They settled a case with her where she says that she was sexually assaulted by a number of the players on that team. So that story's been going on almost a year now. And when you look at the roster from 2018, every one of those players has an NHL contract. So, and a number of them would be eligible to play in the World Hockey Championship.
There are some big names on that roster.
Indeed there are. And, some of them would be eligible to play in the Worlds coming up. Evidently, they will not be able to play for the World Championships. Is this, it's symbolic, but I think it's necessary. But boy, they kind of waited until the last minute to make the announcement, right?
It's kind of been that way. Well, I guess because the World Championship, the announcement for the World Championship is forthcoming, and that's why probably they looked at it. At the same time, this whole thing has kind of dragged out. Keep in mind it's an investigation, and keep in mind that there are some players out there whose names have been or allegedly involved or have been put out there. There are, let's say 22 players on that roster, allegedly 8 involved. Keep in mind this young woman, again, was assaulted, and that is a crime. I'd still go back to, I think we had a discussion about this before, and I do like what happened with Hockey Canada afterward. There had to be a house cleaning. There had to be a reckoning. There had to be stuff moving forward, so that this culture does not exist. David, you're a hockey player. I'm a hockey player. I still play old guy hockey. But a culture has existed of overt sexuality, I would say, through the years. You always heard about it, perhaps, maybe covert as well. but there always has been. Whether it was whatever level of hockey, there has always been whispers. There has always been some people who've gotten in trouble. This is not the first time, and it's what we've got to come to is a realization that this can't happen anymore. I'm the father of a daughter. I wouldn't want my daughter going through that. I'm the father of sons. I wouldn't want my sons to do something like that, as ridiculous and heinous as that seemed. So I do think we have to find a way, and I think we're getting good at stuff like this, better at stuff like this through the years, is that when we see something, logically, we find solutions. This one, obviously, from the beginning, and again, full disclosure, I hosted that event in London. I did not see anything, and no one talked to me about anything at it. I saw the players there. They were honored there that night. There was no drinking going on that night at that gala. I still have a bit of an issue, though, with Hockey Canada with that payout and that payoff. And I know they're saying that it doesn't come from the fund that was allocated towards players, but I don't buy that. I still think that any money that goes into Hockey Canada or any sports event or any sports organization, that money still is your money, and so it is spent. It clearly was something at the time when the police were not getting involved at the time, and now they are involved, and probably rightfully so. I still have a hard time, though, wondering why Hockey Canada felt, and you may differ in your opinion on this. The players were at the event, but this happened outside of that event and off of hockey season, where they're not part of a team. I honestly thought that should have been a criminal investigation from the beginning. Why wasn't that a criminal investigation? Why was that? And why would Hockey Canada be responsible, honestly, for that? I mean, yes, the players were there at that event, but why would they be ultimately responsible for that payout? I still don't get that. And I guess as the investigation moves forward, we will find out. There seemed to be some protectionism going on for that. Again, I just think the whole thing has been just this tornado of, I guess, accusations at the beginning. And then obviously we found out more. I know that there was some video evidence. I think it's a bad look on everybody. I think we just got to find a way to make sure it doesn't happen again. And those who are, if they are criminally responsible, must pay the maker. They, if they must be charged, they must do whatever the time is, whatever that is. And if this time right now is meaning that everybody on that team, I guess, is accused, that probably is what Hockey Canada came to. I do find it a little bit late, and I apologize for the rambling dissertation, but I just think the whole thing, every time I see something about it, we drag this out through government and everything. I think there's this logic here to, clean house, get better people in place. I like some of the people who they've put in place now. Make sure this doesn't happen. Make sure it doesn't happen at a young level. Make sure that the money that is spent, that we have spent on our kids playing sport and playing hockey, goes to the right people, goes to the right organizations. And ultimately, at the end of the day, when you're paying an inordinate amount of money for your kid to play a sport like hockey, you want to make sure that they are in a safe place. And this incident and other incidents like it have shown that it still hasn't happened, and it just doesn't. To me, I don't know why. Especially like an institution and I call it an institution like Hockey Canada. I've known those people for a long. I've done so many Hockey Canada events. I was proud of my association with Hockey Canada, still am in many ways. But when you have a black eye like this and something that happens like this, you have to correct it. And again, as I said, you have to pay the maker. Find a way to make sure that those who were responsible are vetted out and dealt with properly.
Well, and part of this, it gets a little bit more complicated, too, to your point, because we've got a Commons Committee that is investigating it. Again, Hockey Canada beholden to the federal government in as much as, there's some funding that goes towards it from
and understandable.
Tax. For sure. But at the other end of it...
drags out. I just don't know why they have so many hearings. Again, this should just have
there's no teeth, right? I mean, this is performative.
So if you're going into this courtroom of the Commons...
Yeah.
Where there is no criminal responsibility. The only thing they're talking about is funding.
Yeah.
So you're doing that before you go to the courtroom of judicial process, and certainly the courtroom of public opinion, I think, is probably probably more leaning towards the side that we're talking about, is that those who are responsible have to be dealt with properly.
Well, we know that Hockey Canada hired a firm to do a third-party, quote-unquote, air quotes here,
How much did that cost?
Well, indeed, and what are the results, and to what end? What's the effect of actually doing that investigation? Is it for the purposes of a defense, should it come to court, or is it for the purposes of actually shining some transparency and light on what's happened? Right now, they're holding those cards close to their vest.
Yeah, if this was a one-off incident, I would understand that, like, you do your investigation. But I do think that they're trying to dig deeper into the culture of this. And this testosterone-filled hockey culture that exists in teenage boys. Again, you could paint it any way you want, but you've been to the rinks, you've seen the rinks, you hear stories through the years, and people do stupid things. Like, everybody has done stupid things. And when it gets stupider, when alcohol or drugs are involved, or late nights are involved, nothing good ever happens after midnight, right? And so you add all of that plus a sort of a gang mentality with a bunch of young men, immature, irresponsible, reprehensible, and egregious. And again, I don't care. I don't care about the World Hockey Championship. And by the way, all those 22 players, or how many ever there were, they shouldn't care about that either. They should care about getting to the bottom of this. And those who were responsible should be dealt with, as I said earlier. Then they can move forward with that. Then they've got to fix everything else.
But let me take it to the next
level. It's a deep dive, I know.
Because each one of these guys now has an NHL contract. Some of them are,
multimillionaires.
Oh, yeah, and stars in the game. They're going to be there for a while. Let's just take it back a week and a half when we got into all this kerfuffle about the Pride celebrations throughout the NHL. And, James Reimer refusing to wear the jersey, the Blackhawks and the Rangers deciding they're not going to do this. And everybody was all up in arms in terms of what does this say about the players themselves. Let me just ask you, because I thought, what does this say about the league? Let's face it. If you do a search, you find one NHL prospect who has come out to say he's gay. You have a league full of men, and you got to know that there are gay men playing hockey in the NHL. They do not feel comfortable enough coming out, Rod. Never mind somebody wearing the bloody jersey.
And I commend those players who have been able to come out in any sport. And years ago, I remember I was involved in a lot of figure skating competitions, and I remember how impactful for some of the players, and how courageous they had to be at the time. And this is like mid 90s, early 90s, when we saw that, and unfortunately we lived in a society where you couldn't say that, or you couldn't come out, and couldn't, or you felt that stupid, illogical stigmas that existed in society, really in so many ways. You think we have grown up since then, but one of the things too is that within that, again, that especially within the male world, for some reason there's a stigma that is attached, and there is catcalling that goes on, and there is epithets that are thrown around as well, just not regarding LGBTQ, but also for race and that. And we got to get beyond that. I mean, as a society, there's just so much hate. I hate to say this has to do with hate, and that's why they're uncomfortable, or perhaps they're perceived in a different way. No one should be ever perceived because of who they love or what sexual preference they prefer. That has nothing to do with their performance. But unfortunately, we live in that world. And now, James Reimer, I mean, that's his entire opinion. But it goes back to what I said earlier too. I mean, one thing we should also look at, back to the Hockey Canada, is that you are innocent until proven guilty. And so we don't know what happened in that. I mean, again, there was a payout. When you see a payout, you think there is guilt. Right? That's the thing. You think there is guilt. So we are assuming still guilt. And I don't want to paint any of those players in that brush, but I would think that there is probably some pressure on some of those players who weren't involved to get the players who were involved further along in the investigation. And then this coming up again, I think we just got to find ways, David, we just got to find ways of being more logical and growing up in these situations and realize that the world needs to be a safe place for everyone. That's it. Bottom line.
Well, the
Anybody
NHL
who
needs
plays.
to take a leadership stance on this, though. Let's face it. It is the elite league. These are the elite players. We're talking about whether or not it's that toxic male culture that, has been thrown around, or even the whole question around, gay players, LGBTQ players, and respecting that. The league is mum on all of this. It's clear that the NHL, those who are gay in the NHL, do not feel like it's safe to come out.
Well, I do find it's something, I'm not saying this speaking for any of these teams or organizations. I do find that some of this stuff that has existed, and by the way, I've been part of broadcasts that have in every league that have, had pride nights, honoring LGBTQ, the LGBTQ society. But I would say that sometimes I find that it becomes more of a way to sell merchandise.
You're ticking a box.
And it shouldn't be that way.
Nope.
I don't think you have to also, by the way, it's pretty sad with 2023 that we have to do that we have to have those kind of nights. And there will be a time, by the way, fast forward when you and I are doing this little podcast, maybe 10, 15 years from now, we wouldn't have to talk about that. Same thing when we're talking about, we have the same kind of thing going on with women getting involved in management in sports or broadcasting in sport. We move forward, and we never have to talk about that. We move forward as people, and hopefully that's down the road as well, that we don't have to, people can do their own things too. They can wear pink, they can, or whatever color that they want in their wristbands to honor not only LGBTQ or rainbow colors, but also, cancer victims. If on certain months they have those wristbands. I have found that through the years that by the way, people watch sports a lot. And that's one of the reasons that, one of the few things that we can watch now live. And we saw what the NBA did with Black Lives Matter after the George Floyd incident, and how that changed perceptions for a lot of people as well. And just continuing, I think players are understanding that they do have larger voices, and those voices sometimes do need to be heard. And it's kind of funny that we're talking about that, because that's kind of what the whole theme is that, those voices are very, very powerful. And I don't buy, Dave, I don't buy that, shut up and skate, shut up and dribble thing. No. Everybody has their opinion. You don't have our opinions. That's why we have conversations at night. If we didn't all have opinions, it'd be a very boring world. Some are right, some are wrong. I'm sure, both you and I can have a real conversation, maybe bordering on an argument on something. But at the same time, we can find a way to mediate between the two of us. And then I would learn something and you would learn something. That's what this whole thing is about. Learning something from the other side, from something that you're not familiar with. And we are becoming more familiar with more things. And again, I do agree with you. I think the NHL could probably step up. Brian Burke has been such an advocate through the years. There are others, of course. But it is kind of strange that you've only heard about one hockey player, a few football players, and that's only because you do the population that there's more football players per team. One or two basketball players through the years. Women's world, you hear it about, and in hockey and basketball as well, and their sports or tennis. I don't think it should. It used to be so revelatory, and this is somebody's coming up. No, really,
it shouldn't be an occasion.
Really, who cares?
Who cares?
I
I say that with all due
care.
respect. I agree. I mean, I
don't care.
I
really
care
don't care.
as much as you should feel safe and comfortable.
Yeah,
doing it.
safe and comfortable. Yeah, I mean, and just be a good person. Do your thing. Do your diligence, and again, we'll get hopefully down the road. We won't have to worry about things like that.
Well, you and I are old enough to remember when girls hockey was called powder puff.
Oh my gosh.
Remember that?
And I faced, I'm sure, some wrath from some people too, like times when we used to see, we did stories, I remember in the 80s, and this girl plays, and she's a girl, she plays hockey. I think Haley Wickenheiser once said, people said that girls can't play hockey. Well, watch this. And again, think about, we're in the same vintage. How crazy. I think about this all the time. When I watch my daughter play, and I have all my kids who play sports, I just love watching her play hockey. And it's not just her, but her friends, and at a high level of hockey. And that's because of training. And that's because stigmas have been evaporated. And number one, it's because they can play and they're giving ice time and they have organizations. How crazy was it that girls could not play hockey back in the 70s? There were a couple of leagues. Girls might play with the boys teams, one or two, but they played other forms, ringette, ball hockey, whatever, but they couldn't play organized hockey. That just says a lot about how our society has developed through the time. And now, nobody ever talks about that. Now there's women's pro leagues are, getting it, setting attendance records. They're getting national recognition finally. They're amazing players. Never thought again, a few years ago, somebody said, oh, will a female position player ever play in the National Hockey League? And I said, I don't know about that. Because Manon Rhéaume had played and a goaltender. Mm-hmm. Haley had gone over to Finland and had played. And we've had, dalliances with the All-Star game, but it's also a contact game. And I'm a big believer in contact in hockey, not violent contact, but physical contact. You need it. And I always said, well, just because of biological differences at the time and training differences, especially with muscle, the men were just bigger and stronger. And I thought, well, you know what? It's going to be really, really hard for a woman to do that. I'm not going to say that now. It's going to happen someday because of the speed of the game. And the contact, the real violent contact has almost been, eliminated from the game. And you can't tell me that if a young girl, whoever this may be, and let's say Connor McDavid, are just using a name, Billy McDavid, if they grow up together and they're 5 years old and they get the same training, right? Same hours, same training, same coaches, everything. You can't tell me that they can't grow together. You can't tell me. Nobody can tell me. Now a scientist or a biologist or whatever will probably say at this age, because of testosterone and the men that develop musculature, whatever. I'm not getting into that argument, but they might say, oh, there might be a bit of a drop. The only reason this drops sometimes is because women don't get as much ice time or girls don't get as much ice time. You can't tell me that somebody hitting golf balls at this same age with the same training can't do the same thing. You can't tell me, again, there are certain sports I think, you can look at and you go, well, the men are faster. They're bigger and stronger. Duh. Yeah, well, they're bigger, But now as we're getting into advances in sports science through the years without performance-enhancing substances, you can't tell me that can't happen. And I just I still can't believe that the girls had to come this far to play hockey at the highest level.
It's funny. Not that we're on a tangent. I love where we've taken this conversation. I was listening to a podcast on the weekend, and they were talking about the bias in sport reporting and media reporting, specifically when you Google who is the highest scoring soccer player in history, and it I don't know, it comes out with Ronaldo or one of the all-stars, but it's not. It's Christine Sinclair.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But and if you add, well, who's the greatest woman to play soccer, her name comes up. But if you ask her who's the highest scorer in history, a man's name comes up. So it's crazy how this bias is baked right in.
Well, the bias has been baked in. It's taken a long time. I mean, it's and I know there are some naysayers out there going like, oh no, girls can't do this, women can't do. No. Everybody is capable, and if you're given an opportunity. And the same opportunity, equal opportunity. Now, then we get into the business argument. We can go on forever about, should women, should they get as much recognition, airtime as men do in certain sports like hockey? You certainly don't see as much women's pro hockey. Well, number one, you don't have as many women's pro players or a women's pro league. That could change down the road. I'd like to see the National Hockey League involved in that a little bit more. because I do believe you can. And I look at ESPN. I was down in the States recently, and I was watching, they were giving equal opportunity in their sports broadcast at night. People really, they're not watching those that much anymore as little sports centers and things because they get them on their phone. But they're giving equal opportunity to the men's March Madness as the women's March Madness. Now, they had full houses in the women's event. They had full houses in the men's. Now, equal pay, equal play, right? That's the way it's supposed to work. But again, you can get into the business model and they say, well, who makes more? And I'm a big believer in meritocracy too, right? In capitalism, that's how it works. But it has come a long way, Dave. The women's movement in sport still has a ways to go, certainly. But I do find that there's one area that we are becoming a little more logical with.
Mm-hmm. I asked to come on to talk about the game at hand, never mind the game behind the game.
Now let's talk about it. What the heck? I got time.
You know what? We've got, here we are on the verge of Major League Baseball kicking off the new season. And, I realize that, like I said off the top, it's the most optimistic day of the year for anybody who's getting into the starting lineup. But this Blue Jay team looks pretty good.
Yeah, they look really good. And they did look good last year, by the way. They've looked good the last couple of years. Although we never saw them in the pandemic, right? And I think interest it was there, but not nearly as it was last year when you can get to go to games again. And that's the thing, too. I mean, here we are talking about sports. Thank goodness we're where we were, 2 years ago when we could only watch and with no crowds.
Yeah.
They're a very strong team. They made some, I do believe they've made some good moves, but it's 162 and you're in a great division with teams that are also fighting them. One team that's getting better in the Baltimore Orioles. The Tampa Bay Rays always seem to have the Blue Jays number. The Yankees are the Yankees, and the Boston Red Sox, after when some people feel they have an off year, they always seem to come roaring back because it's Boston and they spend so much money. Blue Jays are spending it now. One thing about Rogers, they're spending that money. They're spending the money on the stadium, which I can't wait to go see for the home opener. I love what they've done there. You're going to see more of that, by the way, in sports where people are standing up.
That's taking up so much broadcast time in the spring training games. I'm thinking, holy cow.
Yeah.
That's been kind of an exciting part.
But I like their pitching. I think, if they can get some more innings from some of the players that didn't give them last year, if they can, it's one, like I said, 162. It's so hard. It's a game of failure. It's up and down. As good as you were, everybody talked about Vladdy Guerrero the year before. Everybody said he had an off year. Well, I'd like to have an off year like Vladdy Guerrero had last year. Bo Bichette, I remember, I think you and I had a conversation in the middle of the summer. They were ready. People were ready. Oh, let's trade Bo Bichette. Well, are they saying that now? No. I like what management has done. I like what they have done, but you got to go out and play. And here's what's going to be really interesting this year. And I've watched it over the last year, and I love it. The rules have changed.
I was going to ask
Baseball's rules have changed, and you are going to see a completely different game. I love the pitch clock. It changes games considerably. It's going to change pitchers' mentality. It's going to change batters. The elimination of the shift should have happened long ago. Again, I go back to the word that I use a lot, logic. That should have changed years ago. I know the numbers say, but it's the kind of the rules. You're going to see more spray hitters. You're going to see more defense as well from the second baseman who was always locked in that position. The bags being bigger. You're going to see more running. I love this. The moving players, hit and run. We might see a bunt. We might actually see a bunt. I've seen some in spring training already because they're working on it. I love these new rules. I think it's going to be, it's baseball again. What we've been watching is a hybrid of baseball. It's been basically slow pitch and hard ball together. Bloop, bloop, bash. Bloop, bash. It was all about the home run. Trust me, it's still about bangers. Trust me, that's still sexy. Everybody loves the long ball. But baseball is also bent on moving guys and line drives and great D. And we're going to see that, and the pitch clock and everything else. There are going to be some issues. I will tell you, one thing I don't like is the giving a guy an automatic ball or strike. I think there has to be a warning there, particularly the pitcher, because I do think, the players are going to, I've seen it already. They work that clock with timeouts, etc.
Yep.
And there's some guys who just can't pitch that way. Some guys are good at that. And it's going to throw off their timing and tempo. You're going to see it change probably from April, probably until June, until everybody's really familiar with it. The other one, too, is that when you throw over to first base, right, you only got 2 times that you can throw over. The next time, it's an automatic balk. So players, really good base runners, they're going to take those. They're going to want you to throw over twice, and then they're going. They are going. And I love it. I'm an old school baseball guy. They have to bring more runs into the game, more offense. People say home runs are offense. The problem with home runs is the residue is strikeouts, and strikeouts are boring. Mm-hmm. Sorry. I mean, they're great in a pitcher's duel. You like it for your home team. But when you see guys swinging for the fences every time and nobody on base, and you got these, 4-3 or 2-1 games all the time, no. I think you're going to see more exciting baseball. At least this is what they want.
So what do you think the pitch clock does for this starting rotation for the Blue Jays? As I was watching it, through spring, I'm thinking that's a pretty interesting rhythm.
Yeah. I don't think it affects Manoah too much. He works pretty quickly. Gossman, again, I think one of the things about spring is they've been having to work at it, right? Mm-hmm. It's not that. It's kind of logical. I watched through my boy playing minors last year and then into fall league. They used it all the time, and you go to a game, it's done in like an NBA game, 2 hours 20 minutes, 2 hours 15, and I rarely ever saw a strike or a ball that was called. The guys have to know.
Yeah, that's good for the game.
That's a great question, because you know how it affects you is that when you're on a different pace, you're going to see, I think, a few more slap hits. You're going to see when guy comes in and he knows he's got to get down 5, and I've never thrown a ball at 90 miles an hour, but I know when you throw a spinner, you have to have that in proper technique, and some guys might because they're pitching quicker, they might tip a little more. But that's all. I mean, beyond that, I think in the grand scheme of things, this is really good for baseball. I really think it's good for baseball. And watching what I watch in spring training, I watch a lot of spring training games, is that players are getting used to it. Some don't like it, but I will tell you the vast majority love every rule that's been put in place.
I saw Tyler's name pop up in the box scores in Arizona once in a while this spring. Yeah. How's he doing?
Yeah, he's doing good. I think he's going to start at Double-A Biloxi and then hope to get to Nashville. And he got a few at bats with the big league club. He's a grinder. There are comparisons to a lot of hitters that stay in the box. He's got good plate discipline. And that's not a dad. That's a sports announcer talking to me. So it's
well, the headlines describe him as a top prospect.
Yeah,
so
he's going. You know what? He works. He's not getting cheated. He works hard. I think he'd like to. If he didn't get hurt last year, he might be elevated even one more level. But I just stay healthy. I got another boy I was dealing with this morning down in playing NCAA ball in Baltimore, Coppin State, and he got. It was like a human pinata the other day. Got hit twice in one game. They were playing a doubleheader, got nailed in the arm the next one, and that was it. He was like, he's a little banged up, but you're going to get hurt in baseball. It's one of the things. Like, my kids all played hockey at high levels, and they got hurt. And you're going to get hurt in sport. That's just, if you're not getting hurt, that means you're probably not in the corners very much, or you're not hustling. I hate to say it. You're going to have you just want to make it a major injury. And baseball, for some reason, that's the goal. It circles back to what we talked about. The key for the Blue Jays this year, staying healthy. Mm-hmm. One injury, one major injury. Look at what happened to Edwin Diaz for the New York Mets. Look at Bryce Harper out for a while. Look at your stars who are out of line. You get a major injury that requires surgery. Joey Votto last year went to surgery. Now he's healthy again. Those kind of things, they really affect a lineup. It allows a prospect to come up. Mm-hmm. But it also really could affect your chemistry moving forward when they come back. But for the Blue Jays, I think it's all health for sure.
Talking about chemistry, here we go. The Leafs didn't have to do anything last night. They landed. They're in the playoffs.
Isn't that rather apropos?
There we go. So they're playing Florida, I think, tomorrow.
Yeah.
And Florida's got something to play for, I guess, if they're still chasing the wild card. But you talk about chemistry. all those shifts, in terms of the new players that have come in, and a lot of the commentary has been around, this is great on paper to have the team there. There's a lot of, I think, reasonable question around how do you make that team gel?
Yeah.
And Riley's still out of the lineup, so there are things that the Leafs can really point to and say, we're doing well. We know we're playing Tampa. Tampa's kind of on a bit of a weird tear, too. Yeah. So I think for Leaf fans in these last week and a half before playoffs are going to be a little, I don't know, shakier than usual going into a round.
Too. It's hard for management. Do you go full guns? Like if this was last year, Austin Matthews going for 60 goals plus and all that, you want to get them that. You want to get some stats filled. I think, again, goes back to health. You want to be healthy before the playoffs. You don't want to do anything stupid here. You're going to see some of the stars under load management, air quotes. I do think that's going to happen. I think their goaltending situation is unique. I think probably Samsonov has a skate up right now, perhaps on Murray. And I do think that, what you cannot also just rest, because the best teams, I believe, peak towards the postseason in every sport. The problem with the NHL is you can peak too early. That first round is the most exciting round in playoffs in any sport. Not even close. Not even close. Hockey playoffs, first round, always upsets, always lengthy series. A little bit different now. I hate the playoff format. I don't like that rivalry thing. I still think it should be 1-8. But regardless, Leafs are still in that kind of mix. But I do really believe that you have to be ready to play in that first game. And then, look, again, we go back a few years. For the Toronto Maple Leafs, it's not even just, it's about getting one. And I'm not saying one round. It's about getting one game, then getting the next game. Get through this round. Don't worry so much about, being built to play the Boston Bruins down there. Don't worry who you're playing next. Don't worry about Carolina. Don't worry about New Jersey. Worry about the Rangers. Worry about Tampa Bay right now. Because I really firmly believe if they can get through that first round, and remember, it's been 18 long years. It's unbelievable, actually. If you can get through that first round, I do think that they're going to be playing in June. I really do. They're kind of built for that. And I know that all of those little moves that they've made here, they're not really seeing it happen yet. It takes time. But the beauty is that they've had that time over the last few weeks. And then they're going to make decisions in the coming playoffs. Who's going to sit? Who's not going to sit? Who is healthy? Have to have great goaltending, better defense, and your stars have to be the best players on the ice. Simple. Simple. And maybe, when we talk next, we'll be talking about the Leafs being in the playoffs. But hey, people can say that's, there's no such thing as a curse or a drug. It's not a curse. Well, you know what it is? It's a bad kitchen. It gets in your kitchen. It's mental. I don't care what anybody says. Anybody.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't believe in curses and, curse of the Bambino and the Cubs and all that stuff. And I do believe in droughts and it's stuff that gets in your kitchen. And it becomes mental. Nobody can say that, a player who's in a slump, whether it's in golf or hockey, baseball, football, whatever, you do things a little differently. And it's in the back of your mind. That's why there's some players that are called clutch. They're called clutch. And I don't even know if that's the right term for it, but they're just people that can perform under pressure. The pups perform under pressure. And the beauty of that is that that's what makes them great. And if you got one of those or two of those on your team, whatever team it is, that helps. So I would argue that the Leafs haven't had those guys yet. But sometimes it takes a while to develop those guys. And sometimes it just takes luck and it takes the moment, but you got to put yourself in the moment. So if they can get themselves in the moment, then all of a sudden you're just over that. It does take a while. There's no such thing as this curse or whatever. It's mental. Every game is just so mental. Watch the NCAA basketball championship. Young players, both men and women, who when it comes down to that crucial moment, they have their shining moment, or they wet their pants.
Yeah, they throw
and
up
we
a brick.
see it a lot.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happens in the playoffs. So I do think that this drought of first round, and the more the media gets on it, and they go, oh, we don't want to talk about it. If you don't want to talk about it, I'd say talk about it. You don't want to talk about it. That means it's in your kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
It's in your kitchen. Oh, it's not. No. Get together. Treat it like what it is. Let's form a plan, and let's just get through. That's how you break slumps.
Well, and it's got to be like that because statistically, this team is, at the top of the heap on so many levels. They celebrated in Alberta there last night. Edmonton's got 4 30 goal scorers. Well, the Leafs are only 2 goals away from having the same thing. They have a great power play. Yeah. They've got, the speed at which they play is extraordinary. Yeah. How they move the puck. So all of that stuff.
And yet the biggest stuff. Yeah, the biggest stuff right now, Dave, is that this year of all years, usually the East has been least in so many ways through the years. The East is loaded. That's the thing that's kind of dealt. Now, you got to wait for your time, your window closes, and you go, oh my gosh, my window is full of other teams. Whereas the West, I find, is, there are some openings out there for some teams. I really do think the Edmonton Oilers have a very legitimate chance of winning a Stanley Cup. Mm-hmm. I just think it's kind of it's almost manifest destiny that Connor McDavid is going to have a cup, as Sidney Crosby did, as Wayne Gretzky did, as Steve Yzerman did, as Gordie Howe, as the great ones do. But they never played in 32-team leagues. But you look at that side, and they have a real strong belief system, and they're barely going to get there, but they're finally they've been galloping the last month. And McDavid's had a season for the ages. The Leafs, I agree with you. And by the way, wouldn't that be something if they met in a final?
Oh,
I'm not saying that could happen, but it could.
Yeah.
If they did, very similar teams. The issue is the Leafs have to go through a lion's cage to get there of teams just waiting there.
Well, as good as the Bruins are, they're going to have to go through the same thing. Yeah. Right.
And by the way, they can get knocked off too. You just come up with a plan. You play harder. What's the old saying that talent beats hard work every time, unless talent doesn't show up.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Before we go, Raptors still hanging in there right now.
Mm-hmm. Interesting year.
Yeah.
Again, go back to the East and West thing. It's a year of real parity in the NBA. I think, Milwaukee's still one of the strong teams, and Giannis is playing great, and Philly is playing great, and Embiid's having a season. But the West is crazy. Lakers might be coming on. I'm not a big fan of the play-in thing. I know that the Raptor fans probably like it because, hey, we're going to get – I'm not a big fan so much of that. I know it's increased, and I'm sure every league's going to do it. It increases revenue, by the way. It also increases interest. But I think if you're playing for 8 – there's a great race for 8. You shouldn't be playing to play in, to get in. Having said that, though, the Raptors might have that. They're an interesting team. They're still not, I don't think they're championship worthy. Anybody who says that they're going to win an NBA title this year, that's not going to happen. But they play hard for Nick Nurse. They have their momentary lapses. They still aren't a very good shooting team. Fred VanVleet is starting to come on a little bit. Injuries have hurt them, but I give Nick Nurse a lot of credit. Through these peaks and valleys, and at one point they look like so far removed, and they maybe, if you see the player that potentially could be drafted, the Connor Bedard of the NBA who's coming in this year, Wembanyama, you might say, oh man, this would have been a year to tank. I'm not a believer in tanking. But they play hard, and they could surprise somebody. They could make a run in the playoffs. I don't think it's going to be a run to the championship. But, they're still fun to watch. I loved watching them last year. I still love watching them this year. And they got a few little issues here and there, but it's hard to believe. It's 4 years. 4 years have gone by. It's a quadrennial since that championship came to Toronto, and we are still kind of living off of it. And Messiah Jury said it best, Dave. He said, hey, we're not here to win one. We're here to win many. I think if Kawhi Leonard had stayed, we probably would be, we're not having this conversation. But at the same time, they still are intriguing, and they're exciting to watch. And they play hard against whoever it is. And the NBA, it's a crapshoot. But once it gets to here's the other thing. Like the NHL, I keep going back and forth. The NHL and NBA, 2 different games. Regular season, playoffs.
Yeah.
You see it in the NHL for sure. No hitters, all of a sudden, man, it's a grind. 60 minutes of hell. NBA, barely any defense, a lot of bombs, no half-court offenses or defenses. Guess what? 48 minutes of hell.
Yeah.
Different games.
Things tighten up in a hurry. Indeed.
Love the playoffs.
Yep. Things to look forward to. Listen, pal, it's good of you to make time for us. Always good to talk to you,
my friend.
Rod Black, thanks for being here. All right,
See you, David.
That'll do it for us here for Now and Next. Tomorrow.
Next time we got to talk Masters.
We will.
Oh, yes.
We'll get into that. Tomorrow on the show, we're going to introduce you to a program that's come up out of the University of Ottawa. They're having a virtual reality moot court. It's really cool, and it's a real thing. So that's tomorrow on Now and Next for Story Studio Network. Now and Next is produced by Becky Coles. Our production manager is Jamie Nickerson. Audio editors are Mike Trutler and Drew Garner. And our sonic logo designer is Greg McDonald. Our executive producers are Dave and Aaron Trafford.
This is SSN.
Story Studio Network.